If you've been in the workforce for the last decade or so, you know how hard it's been to find a job. Well, now the tables have turned, and it seems we are in an employees market. Labor shortages are affecting many sectors, and some companies are having a tough time finding enough employees to fill their vacancies. Today, we're talking with London Free Press reporter Jonathan Juha about the labor shortage and how companies can attract the talent they so desperately need. Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
Not too bad on yourself.
I'm good. Thank you for joining us today. I know that you cover the jobless rate extensively. We just had a major job fair here in London this week as well. There's lots of jobs available, and yet the jobless rate keeps going up as well. So, talk about how that's happening. How do those things relate?
Well, as you say, yeah, that's right. Some of the estimates out there suggest that there are about 7,000 positions available in the London region. But you're right. At the same time, we're seeing the unemployment rate sort of like go up. Actually, has gone up over the past 4 months, and it's now sitting at 6.6% in August. Now, for a medium market like London, sometimes it's hard to determine specifically what's behind this trend, perhaps. Uh, but definitely, there are certain factors at play here. Obviously, like last month in August, we lost about 2,000 positions. Sometimes there's regular turnout, positions that are closing, people who simply loses their job and things like there's a natural ending of positions. But at the same time, here in the London, we are seeing that a lot of people are entering the market, sort of like looking for jobs. So on one point, that suggests that they're hopeful that they can be able to find a position. And obviously, when that people are counted, that increases the unemployment rate. So it's a combination. But what happens is right now, it's that we also have, because workers know that there are so many opportunities available, it seems to suggest that they're also pickier into what they choose. So they may be looking for a job right now, but they're not deciding right away or taking whatever comes first. So they stayed in that labor market for a little longer. So that's also a factor as to that can bring the unemployment rate. Some economists also say that, we're also experiencing a little bit of a correction here in the London region. We had a very strong 2021. We created thousands of jobs. We recovered all the ones that we lost during the first year of the pandemic. And now we recovered about 30,000 that we lost, and we're now above by about 28,000, right? So a little bit of a slowdown can be natural as well when you have an economy that is overperforming. But the key issue for companies remains that there are positions available. They're not getting enough workers. They're not filling those positions as fast as they would like. And obviously that also hinders the possibility for companies to grow. It could impact, how interested other companies may be settling here in the London region if they feel like they're not going to be able to, fill the positions that they have. So there's a ripple effect from what we're seeing right now as well that could happen down the line too.
Now, I know there's a lot of factors involved, but can we blame it on one thing? Can we blame this on the pandemic? Can we blame this on, the great resignation that we've heard so much about? People are leaving jobs or trying to find jobs that maybe give them a better work-life balance?
That I don't think that we can just blame it on one thing, but definitely the pandemic has played a big factor, as you say. The so-called great resignation that happened following after the pandemic. We had baby boomers who were already retiring, and maybe they decided to retire even earlier, to try to avoid and protect themselves from COVID. You have workers who, maybe are in certain sectors like healthcare, services jobs. A little bit of burnout there could also impact them, trying to look for something else. And as you say, people wanting more flexible arrangements. Like before the pandemic, working from home was not really that widespread. People were exposed to it, so the benefits. So people are now interested in looking sort of like those types of arrangement, even as restrictions are being lifted. Actually, earlier this year, there was a workforce development here for the London region. They did a survey, and 95% of workers in the London region said that they were looking for some type of arrangement that would allow them to, work from home, either a hybrid model or working from home completely on a full-time basis. So it's definitely an aspect there. People looking for that flexibility after they were exposed to it because of COVID.
Sure. I know there was a job fair earlier this week in London, and you were there talking to some of the companies. What did they need to do to adapt or maybe change their work model to attract some of these employees? You were talking about hybrid models, but is there anything else they need to do? And are they doing it? Are they changing their models?
Well, if you ask, people looking for work, they would say, money talks, right? So it could be a factor of, obviously, workers again are looking sort of like that hybrid models or that flexibility to have a work-life balance that works best for them now. But obviously, at the end of the day, they're going to be looking for something that pays them to sort of like cover their costs, and that's becoming even more important now as we see inflation, the high cost of rents, gas, food, and all of that. So that becomes a little bit of a bigger factor into the decision that people are making. Like they're not just going to settle for a minimum wage job when they know that that's not going to be enough. When you're seeing rents, last week I did a story about how rents in London are now, for one bedroom, some landlords, the average are asking 1,700. Obviously, on a minimum wage, that's not going to cut it. So people are, trying to take their time and figure out what's best for them, and obviously finding that job that will compensate them in a way that they can afford the rising cost of living.
Now, obviously, some companies are able to adapt, maybe offer a little bit more money, but what about those companies who maybe can't afford, like small businesses, local businesses, can't afford to pay much more than minimum wage? What happens to them?
They had to adapt in some other ways, maybe doing more with a little less staff, or maybe the owners having to pitch in a little bit to do the work. But it's a reality, as you say, their bottom line, it's different for the ones of a big company. I was talking to some experts in the manufacturing sector, and they have the shortages, and they're considering looking for machines that can do some automatization of some of their processes as a way to address the labor shortage. So looking at it under a different light, obviously that's not a possibility for a small company. So they do have to find a way to adapt, doing more with less staff, rearranging, maybe, closing some hours or sort of thing. So different possibilities when, raising wages is not a possibility for them.
Yeah. So are we seeing more flexibility? Are companies offering that, work-life balance, kind of what we had in the pandemic? I think people really reassessed what they want out of life and work, and how those things should go together more seamlessly. So are bigger companies adapting and offering, new policies? They've got new working models that they're offering.
We don't have hard numbers on to say how many companies are actually doing that. You do see now some, job postings that highlight that possibility of, possibility of working from home, being in the office. So like some companies are trying to do that. But again, if I go back to that survey that I told you about, where workers said that they wanted that flexibility, companies on the other side were not so keen of, committing to a full remote workforce, because companies are concerned a little bit about efficiency of work, how much production employees are bringing to the table. Maybe, it can be understandable as a person, as an individual, you may think, this is what worked for me. Companies, maybe some of them have a little bit of an older mentality and say, we need to have people close. There's also, they talk about collaboration and how being apart does not bring the same interaction between coworkers, and ideas do not flow the same way. But to answer your question, yes, some companies are doing it. It's hard to say specifically how many. We don't have hard data here for the London region, but I think that's definitely more part of the conversation, and it will continue to be. I don't think that we're going to go back completely to people going full time to the offices all the time, because some companies have also found that they can function that way and make a way to work. And when you're trying to attract workers, that's something that definitely they're going to have to consider a little bit more as a way to retain or attract the talent that they're looking for.
Sure. Is there one sector that's maybe more hard hit by a labor shortage than other sectors? Maybe a type of job or some skills that are really needed the most during this labor shortage?
Well, talking to experts, they say that it's pretty much across the board. But you can see some sectors like, the service food sector, or like retail and things like that. Some of the industries that were harder hit by the pandemic, with the job closings and things like that, with the restrictions and everything. So people trying to shy away perhaps from some of those jobs, looking for something that would offer them a little bit more stability, even if, hopefully this is not the case, but if there were to be another lockdown or more restrictions or something, they don't want to have to go back to EI or some assistant program. They want some more stability. But you've also talked about manufacturing, which is a big sector here in the London region. For years, they have complained about the fact that they don't have enough skilled labor. So they have a workforce that is, some of their employees hitting the retirement age, and you're not getting enough people entering into the trades, young people entering into the trades, and they don't have the same level of experience. Like, I mean, it's not the same to replace a person who has 25 years of experience as a welder or an electrician or something like that with someone who's just entering the job. So it's been a red flag for manufacturing, and one area where they have been saying for years this is becoming a struggle, even though they're also finding hard to fill some positions, in clerical work, administrative work, and things like that. So it's certainly an issue here in the London region specifically as well. Like, I mean, it's overall, but companies here are raising the alarm about the situations that they're facing. Now, that's a situation that they may also change in the coming months and years. Like, economists are talking about with interest rates going up, that having an impact, slowing down the economy, then maybe some people may lose their job, and the market definitely, then maybe they have to adapt and try to find something. If we get to that point where, the economy really slows down and it starts to affect businesses that have to lay off workers or something. So we will have to see about what happened there, but definitely it's sort of like right now, as you said, it's definitely an employees market in this moment.
Yeah, right now you have the option. And then so I was going to ask you to kind of predict the future, and you did just a little bit there. Because, there's always ebbs and flows, of course, over the years. Do you think that we might go into a recession? Some people are predicting that we might lose some jobs, or things just might kind of stabilize a little bit, and not be so extreme.
It's always so hard to predict, I mean, but I mean, in the sense, London may be well positioned to sort of like withstand a slowdown, in the sense that, as you say, there are already thousands of jobs available. So if people lose their jobs, the likelihood is they could find something, maybe not what they were looking for, but they could find something. And then we also have, some big companies that are coming down the line, the Maple Leaf factory coming here, Amazon opening a center between here and St. Thomas. Between those two companies, it is expected that they will need to hire more than 2,000 people. So if we get to that point where perhaps we're hitting a little bit of a recession, hopefully having those vacancies and more of the jobs coming down the line will help sort of like blunt some of that impact here in the local economy.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. Thank you so much, Jonathan. And we'll definitely be following your reporting on the jobless numbers and employment here in London on the London Free Press. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.